Good news, obesity has been cured. You mean everyone all at once realized that they need to change their diet and exercise? No, of course not. There is a new magic weight loss injection you can get called Ozempic or Wegovy. Now, because obesity is no longer a problem, all the stocks that were obesity related that treat diabetes, sleep apnea, and liver problems are now falling because people really believe that obesity is now a thing of the past. Now, if you really believe that, you might want to go buy Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly. But if you have seen this movie before and know how it ends, you might want to look at some of these beaten down stocks for when Wall Street realizes there is no magic cure without some unintended side effects. So let's go take a look at what these miracle drugs are all about and go back in time and look at what happened to some other magic miracle obesity drugs. After that, I'm going to go look at some of these beat down obesity stocks and see which ones might be a good candidate for a bounce when Wall Street finally changes its mind a little bit. So let's have a look. So Ozempic is a diabetes drug made by Novo Nordisk, and Wegovy is just a stronger version of Ozempic, and it is made specifically for weight loss. And already they say there are severe side effects. So this woman, Carrie, who took Ozempic for type 2 diabetes, and it was a weekly injection, and it lowered her blood sugar levels, but it also brought side effects, including vomiting, fatigue, headaches, and stomach cramps. I couldn't even raise my head to vomit in the commode. It was so bad. So why are people taking these drugs if they have these bad side effects? Because it is making them lose weight, apparently. So the drugs are designed to mimic a hormone that signals to the brain when a person is full and promotes the release of insulin, a hormone that stops blood sugar from getting too high. And so the medication can lower blood sugar levels and suppress appetites. And so it's gotten really popular in the last year, and even people like Elon Musk were touting the drug's weight loss effects. And so because of this hype, prescriptions for Ozempic tripled from 2021 to 2022. So the FDA approved Ozempic for people with type 2 diabetes in 2017, and then Wegovy, the same drug, but just goes up to a higher dosage in 2021 for weight loss in adults with obesity or those who are overweight and have at least one weight-related health condition such as high blood pressure or cholesterol, which I assume pretty much anybody who's overweight can qualify for this. Now, the great thing about this drug for the drug companies is the effects of this drug, semaglutide, stop when patients go off of it. So some people regain weight. Experts said they consider Ozempic and Wegovy to be lifelong medications. I'm sure Novo Nordisk loves that. Wegovy showed that not unexpectedly, patients experience weight regain once they stop taking the medication. This woman who has type 2 diabetes said she gained back about 15 pounds of the 25 she lost last year while taking Ozempic. And another woman says she weighs more now than when she took Wegovy. Within 1 month of stopping the medication, she gained back the 15 pounds she lost on the drug, she said, plus an extra 10 pounds over the next 6 months. And in clinical trials, 73% of adults taking the highest dose of Wegovy reported gastrointestinal issues. Nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, constipation, and stomach pain are the most common. Some people have reported more serious, albeit rare, side effects like pancreatitis and kidney failure. And without insurance, Wegovy cost about $1,000 per month. So is that all it takes to cure obesity? Just this $1,000 a month injection 4 times a month? Well, let's look in history to see what happened to some other miracle diet drugs. So in the 1990s, fen-phen was very popular and it gained notoriety as an easy way to help people lose weight. Even though the FDA never approved of fen-phen for safe use, manufacturers quickly produced the drug to meet the rising demand from patients around the country. By 1997, two medical studies showed evidence of severe cardiac problems in the people who took the drugs, and approximately 1 in 3 people exposed to fen-phen showed signs of abnormal heart issues. And so Wyeth produced Redux, which is the brand name for dexenfluramine, which was a substitute for fenfluramine and was thought to carry fewer side effects for the people who used it. But later on, it was found that they caused the same heart problems as fen-phen. And this drug was FDA approved for use in 1996. And so because of that, the FDA asked the manufacturers to stop distributing the drugs. And so now you have the proverbial legal help for Redux or fen-phen claims. If you or a loved one has taken fen-phen or Redux and experienced any harmful side effects, please contact blah, blah, blah law office. 2009, FDA recalls hydroxycut diet pills after reports of liver damage and other health problems. 2013, diet pill recalled due to links to liver damage. FDA says USP Labs is recalling Oxy Elite Pro products thought to have impurities. The diet supplement is used for weight loss and muscle building after linking the products to dozens of hepatitis and liver failure cases in Hawaii. And here, 2012, what you need to know after obesity drug recalled due to cancer risk. Okay, it was Belviq, and it was approved in 2012 for weight loss, but is now being immediately recalled amid concern about an increased risk of a range of cancers. And this is in 2020, so 8 years after it was approved and people started using it, then they figured out that it causes increased risk of cancer. So people looking for the magic cure, the easy fix to obesity is nothing new. Usually those miracle drugs turn out to have a lot of problems with them that only come out some years later. I'm not saying this is going to happen with Wegovy and Ozempic, but you see there's already a lot of side effects and talk about more serious problems that are possible. So what I'm saying is, just like the pendulum has swung all the way to, hey, these miracle drugs are going to completely wipe out obesity and therefore send all the stocks that take care of obesity problems, send them down to zero, that pendulum is probably going to start swinging back the other way eventually, especially if there is some kind of scare or somebody documents something bad happening from these drugs or some study comes out, then these obesity related stocks are gonna have a big snap back. So let's look at a Barron's article that talks about these stocks that have been beaten down because of these miracle weight loss drugs. And so Barron says sales of Dexcom glucose monitors could be hurt by new weight loss drugs. Weight loss drugs like Wegovy are bad news for these stocks. Shares of companies that treat everything from type 2 diabetes to sleep apnea have been sinking since new weight loss medications skyrocketed. And so they say they're forecasting hundreds of billions in sales for Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, the two most valuable pharma companies on the planet. Their shares mobbed by those convinced that GLP-1s will save the world from epidemic obesity. And so the companies of insulin pump makers, glucose monitors, sleep apnea, CPAP machines, and liver disease drug developers are down a lot because of this. And so they say investors are looking to a future when fewer people develop diabetes and sleep apnea, so they're dumping these stocks. So all of a sudden, these drugs are going to make everybody thin and healthy and not have diabetes or sleep apnea anymore. I don't really believe that. Now, they say turning the tide of obesity will take years, so plenty of patients will still need these companies' help. But even after their summer slide, stocks like Dexcom and Insulet have traded near triple-digit earnings multiples. And here's the problem. Everybody is euphoric about these stocks on the way up so that they give them these ridiculous triple-digit earnings multiples. And then when something bad happens, the air comes out of these very quickly. So even though they're down, they may still be very expensive. And so they say these drugs let people shed 15 to 20% of their weight, and Wall Street sees the sales of these drugs exceeding $40 billion a year by the decade's end. So hedge funds are not only dumping these stocks, but they are also shorting them, expecting them to fall even more. So let's look at these beaten down stocks to see if any of them look cheap yet. So the diabetes devices makers, Dexcom, Insulet, forward PE 67.88, still very expensive. And Tandem Diabetes Care doesn't even have any earnings yet. Sleep apnea devices, on the other hand, you got Resmed, which has only a 12-month forward PE of 20.5, while Inspire Medical doesn't have earnings. Liver drugs, same thing. None of them have any earnings yet. They're still losing money. So I'm going to look at charts of all of these, but right off the bat, Resmed looks like the reasonable play here. And the sleep apnea vendors, Resmed and Inspire, said that these drugs won't hurt their markets. And the reason is that people using GLPs will bring many new people into the healthcare funnel. And so this will open them up to sleep apnea awareness, diagnosis, and treatment pathways. That's from the Resmed CEO. And maybe the companies that treat fatty livers are falling more because Eli Lilly's experimental drug retatrutide not only let people lose 24% of their weight, but also cleared the high fat levels in their livers. So that weighed on shares of company like Madrigal Pharmaceuticals, which are developing drugs for a fatty liver disease known as NASH. So let's look at some charts. Let's start with the winners first. NVO, Novo Nordisk, is up from about $50 to a high of about $100, even though their earnings per share, quarterly earnings went from about 84 cents to about $1.27 now. But maybe some of that euphoria is now coming out of the stock a little bit. It is down about 10% off of its high. Eli Lilly is similar. It's also up about 100% over the year and is down about 10% off of its high from about 600 to 550. So for the diabetes devices, DXCM or Dexcom, this is a monthly chart, this is a weekly chart, this is a daily chart. So the monthly chart shows you a lot better the longer term trend, and this stock was really strong in the beginning of the year, and since like late June it just started coming down with all the other obesity stocks. And so it's down from about a high of 140 to about 89, so that's about a 30% drop. The volume has not been that high. If you look at the monthly volume here, it's about the average. The weekly volume is definitely higher than average, but not super high. And the daily chart is definitely higher than average. Maybe it's starting to look for a bottom here, but I don't think we're there yet. And either way, the stock is still priced very high with a very high PE. Their last quarterly earnings was 34 cents a share. So even if they did that for 4 quarters in a year, that's $1.35 on a $90 stock. That's pretty expensive. So Insulet or PODD stock was as high as about 335, is now like 160. So it's taken a big hit. And on some heavy monthly volume you see here, the average is like 11. This month was like 32 million. Same with the weekly volume. So I'm not so sure that this is done going down yet. But if you were thinking of jumping into something like this for a bounce back, I would wait at least until the daily chart at least went above these moving averages, right? This is the 10, 20, and 50 50-day exponential moving average, and it is below the 10. So this is strongly negative. If you flip this chart upside down, it would look like a very strong stock, right? Trailing above the 10-period EMA, but in this case, it's below it. So again, it might be a while before these things turn around, unless there is some bad news about Wegovy or something, and then these things may snap back pretty quick. Another thing is to look at the short interest. And so Dexcom has a 16% short interest, Insulet has 4%, Tandem has 12%. So the higher the short interest these things are, the quicker they will have to turn around if there's some good news for them or bad news for Wegovy, as people will scramble to cover their shorts. Tandem, TNDM, is also down from about 37 to about 20. So almost a 50% drop there in just a few months. Not on huge volume on the monthly, a little bit elevated on the weekly, but if you look at their earnings down here, you see there are no earnings. They are negative. So they did a little better from minus 192 to minus 55 cents, but still negative. So this doesn't really look like something I would be that interested in. Resmed, on the other hand, RMD, only has 1% of their shares sold short and has a 20.5 PE. And it was a really strong stock and looked like it was going to bounce off this 50-month exponential moving average to bounce up to new highs until this Wegovy storm took over the country, so to speak. So it went from about 225 to 136 on some pretty high volume, monthly and weekly and daily. But if you look at their earnings, it's just been trending up. So it's like $1.60 a share, $1.68, $1.66. So if these weight loss drugs are going to hit their earnings, it hasn't happened yet. And they have a relatively low PE. I'm not so sure the selling is done yet. But like I said, at least wait for the daily chart to start to turn around before you take a shot and try to buy a falling knife. Because as much as I like this, if I bought this and it dropped another 10%, I would dump it and probably not look back. INSP, Inspire, down from 330 to 190. Some pretty big volume, monthly and weekly. Looks like it still has some ways to go, and it loses money every quarter. So it has no PE because it loses money. So not something I would be that inspired to own. Madrigal, MDGL, was about 320, now is like 160, so cut in half in like 4 months. Not super high volume on the monthly or weekly, and at least the daily chart is looking like it's trying to get above the 50-day exponential moving average. It tried once, it failed. Maybe on the next try, it may get above that. So it may be looking for a place to turn around. But this stock has 11% of its shares sold short. So that's always good for when some good news comes out. And look at this. I don't know what this news was about, but it went from like 57 to 300 in 1 month. And this one, AKRO, or Akero Therapeutics, is barely down. I mean, it was 58, fell down to 40. Now it's back around 48. So this is probably acting the strongest out of all of these so far, even though it has no earnings. They lose 60 cents, 55 cents, 49 cents a month. But the stock price is above the 10 exponential monthly moving average. So this is still sitting very, very strong, right? And the weekly chart is also above the 50-week, and the daily chart is just now bouncing off the 50-day exponential moving average. And the last liver drug on Barron's list is ETNB, or 89 Bio. And so this thing was as high as 23. Now it's 15.5. So what's that, about 25, 30% drop? Chart-wise, this doesn't look that bad on a monthly chart. On a weekly chart, it's so-so. Daily chart, not great. But either way, this thing is also losing money. And this one, according to Barron's, has 40% of its shares sold short. So any little spark could be a powder keg in a short squeeze for something like this. So if there's any hint that there's some bad news coming out on Wegovy, you'd probably want to buy this immediately for a perceived or real short squeeze in this stock. So guys, as always, this is not any specific investment advice to buy or sell any of these stocks. It's me thinking out loud and looking at how bad they are beat down or not, and which one looks the best. And in my opinion, it's Resmed RMD. That doesn't mean I bought any yet. It doesn't even mean I'm going to buy some. And even if I do buy some, I could be out of that stock in 5 minutes, 5 days, or 5 weeks, who knows. And even if you are not interested in buying any of these stocks, there's a lesson to be learned here, because these stocks that were formerly high flyers that had high PEs of above 100, you see that they are wildly overpriced and priced to perfection. And so when that is the case, the smallest bad news that comes out can make them drop really far, really fast. And so we're seeing that on the other hand now with Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. They have skyrocketed in the last year, and that is also on hopes of really big future sales. If any of that starts to have any doubts about how that will pan out, those stocks could take big hits as well. So the moral of the story is, don't chase the beautiful story, or if you do and you're on board early, have a pretty itchy trigger finger, because when they go bad really quickly. And if anybody knows these companies really well, let me know in the comments below which of these stocks you think are the best ones for a possible rebound and why. I hope you like this one, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.